Hello everyone, and thank you for patiently waiting. My name's Josh from Career Map TV, and I'll be your host. Today we're joined by Network Rail, who are going to talk to you about apprenticeships. We do have a dedicated Q&A section at the end, so please feel free to pop any questions in the chat box as we go through. So without further ado, I'll now pass it over.
Hi everybody, my name's Amavir and I work in the early careers team here at Network Rail. And I just want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar, where I'm going to give a quick overview of who Network Rail are, some of the apprenticeship schemes that we've got available, the application process, and a couple of hints and tips too. After that, we'll be followed by a couple of apprentices who are currently in the business at the moment, and they are Rowan, Bailey, Joseph and Joel. And each of them will be talking about their own respective journeys and careers at Network Rail so far. So before we go any further, just a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Amavir and I've been working at Network Rail for just over 8 years now. I myself started as a graduate sort of shortly after university, spent some time going around the business, and then finally currently I'm working sort of in the recruitment team where we focus on all things early careers. Now, just a quick introduction in terms of who we are as a company. Now, contrary to popular belief, we don't drive trains, but in fact what we actually do is own, operate, maintain and invest all the surrounding infrastructure that relates to the trains. So this might be the 20,000 miles of track, the 30,000 sort of miles of bridges, tunnels, viaducts, or even our stations that sort of occupy the country. We host and look after and maintain and renew all the surrounding infrastructure and assets. We're one of the biggest and safest railways in Europe, despite being one of the oldest too. And we've got a wide variety of different opportunities available, whether that's in sort of our more engineering side of things, or finance, project management, so on and so forth. We have a core set of values, and why I discuss these in a second will become pertinent later down the line in this webinar. And these are to always be safe. We work on a live rail, fast railway environment, which comes with a whole host of different potential risks and dangers. And that's why first and foremost, we have a very big focus on ensuring that not only do we keep ourselves safe, but also our customers, passengers, and those sort of surrounding stakeholders too. Caring about others as well as acting together as a team is very much sort of a cornerstone to our business, and fundamentally it's how we operate and interact with people, whether that's in our own small sort of local teams or whether we're working more sort of larger scale across the organization or potentially across different suppliers and interfaces as well. And then we're always encouraged to and empowered to act. So whether that's to potentially find anything that's any unsafe sort of practices or things going on, or whether there's anything we can do to really help to improve customer experiences or finding more efficient ways to do things, we're very much empowered and encouraged to do so. Now, some of you might have heard of Great British Railway and sort of might have a couple of questions around that. But generally, whilst the final, the actual specifics of exactly how that's going to look and how that's going to operate are still just being finalised and decided. In terms of the way Great British Railway will in essence work is Network Rail and a few other companies will be all absorbed into creating Great British Railway. And the idea behind it is so that we're able to offer a more joined up, coordinated approach when it comes to travel. And basically the idea behind it is to make customers and passengers' lives as easy and as efficient and as safe as possible when utilising our railways. So whilst the exact mechanics are still being ironed out and finalised, in a few years' time, eventually we will slowly be changing over into Great British Railway. Now, in terms of apprenticeships, we've got a whole host of different apprenticeships on offer this year. We have just gone live for applications last week for the bulk of these apprenticeships, and we'll be sort of live for the next 2 to 3 months. And these are, we have our rail engineering apprenticeship, which Bailey is a current apprentice for. So I'll let him dig a little bit deeper later on in terms of what the specifics around that are. But in essence, it's sort of around how we maintain, look after the surrounding infrastructure related to the day-to-day rail running of the railway. We also have an operations apprenticeship scheme, and this very much focuses on the operational logistics side of things. So you'll have more of an exposure to the likes of some of our signalling roles, probably some shift station work. We also have a level 3 finance scheme, which Joseph's going to talk a little bit later in terms of his own experiences and how he's found that later in this webinar. And then we've also got a level 4 corporate social responsibility scheme, which should be going live next week. And on top of that, we've got a couple of level 6 apprenticeship schemes as well. One of them being our digital and technology solutions one, which is very much focused around our IT infrastructure, our IT assets. And we've got Joel and Rohan, who will be touching a little bit later in terms of some of the stuff that they've got up to for that scheme. We also have a rail and rail systems engineering level 6 degree apprenticeship. With this, we've got a whole host of different pathways available. Currently on our website, we are recruiting for our Rail for the Future pathway, but we have another 4 or 5 level 6 rail systems engineering roles coming likely next week. And on top of that, we also have a project management apprenticeship scheme available too. Now, in terms of the important stuff, the benefits and some of the things that we get as Network Rail employees and as apprentices too. So obviously we offer competitive salary based on the different levels that we're offering, as many will come with more higher qualifications, more advanced qualifications, and sometimes we then have high entry requirements for those schemes. On top of that, you will receive 28 days annual leave, and that excludes the public bank holidays. We also give 5 additional volunteering day leaves. So if anyone is interested in any charity work or any sort of giving back, we're very much empowered to do so. And then we have a whole host of other different discounts and benefits. So this is money off sort of gym memberships. We get money off rail travel. You have the opportunity for health insurances, and there's and also our pretty well recognised railway pension scheme. There's an opportunity to join that as well. So not only do you sort of get your pay, but there's also a whole host of different benefits and money off sort of savings, which we also provide you with. Now, in terms of the application process, it's a relatively simple 3-4 step process. The first of which involves you completing an application form, which just has just us asking for a little bit more information in terms of who you are, where you live, which scheme you're interested in applying for, and also just a couple of questions in terms of what qualifications you currently have at the moment. After that, you'll then be moved onto our online assessment stage. Now, at this stage, generally depending on the apprenticeship that you're going to be applying for, will dictate the nature of the types of online assessments that you're given. But the idea behind this is we have a couple of different activities, all designed to test different strengths and different weaknesses and different skill sets, and providing you're successful in that stage, as well as giving us an idea of sort of your motivations for wanting to apply, you will then be moved on to an assessment centre. Sometimes these are in virtual, sometimes they're in person, depending again on the scheme which you're applying for. And in essence, it's a day's worth of different activities, all with the hope of being able to see who you are like as a person, how you interact with others, and then really just a good way to see if you're best suited for our schemes. And then following that, if you're successful, we will let you know the outcomes and then sort of let you know what the next steps and processes are from there. Now, in terms of just a couple of tips and hints, which I like to give people for the application process, generally, the application form is simple enough. It's just a couple of different bits of information that we ask for you more than anything else. What I do recommend to people is not only do we ask it at the beginning, but throughout the process, we will ask if there are any reasonable adjustments that you require. I encourage, if anybody does so, if they do tick at that stage that you might require some reasonable adjustments, what we'll do then is from there, our candidate management team will then get in contact with you and sort of discuss sort of the best support mechanisms that we can provide to help you, to allow you to really give it your best shot throughout the process. For the online assessment itself, in terms of tips, starting really simple. The best thing I always suggest is sort of check your technology first, make sure the Wi-Fi is strong, you've got battery on your device. Try and get into an environment where you know you won't be disturbed or distracted by siblings, parents, etc. And also one thing I would say is really prevalent is, and the people that generally do well are those that take a bit of time to prepare beforehand. So having an idea of sort of why you might want to work for Network Rail, why you might be considering a certain apprenticeship scheme, what qualities you think you can bring to the role, are all really good positive things that, by doing some sort of research around these sort of topics, will always stand you in good stead throughout the application process. At the assessment centre, what I would say is, first of all, please don't worry. We're not trying to trick people out with trick questions. We generally want you to try and do as well as you can and perform to your best. Often, I always recommend to people is, whilst the assessment centre is us assessing yourselves, try and think of the process as a two-way process, if you like, and it's a chance for you to also check out the employer, see the building, see the facilities, and also get an idea of if this is the type of place you'd like to start your career. In terms of traveling, I always say if it's an early start, potentially consider maybe stopping the night before, or really check if you've got any alternative travel arrangements, just because sometimes transport can go wrong first thing in the morning. A bus can break down, a train can break down, so on and so forth. So just having some mitigating potential plan Bs is always a good way to sort of mitigate that. And then on the assessment centre itself, with some of the activities, try and think about what it is that we're trying to achieve. So if, for example, you're in a group task, making sure you contribute to the challenge, to the group task at hand, trying to interact with others, building on other people's points of views, building on other people's ideas, challenging other people's ideas, can all be really helpful things for you to do, because what you have to remember is we only have a certain time frame to be able to see you, and therefore during those actual exercises, make sure you contribute, make sure you get involved, and really just try and give your best representation of yourself. And then before I go any further, I just want to hand over to our apprentices, who are just going to be talking about what they've been up to, which schemes they are, and how they found things so far. So if I'd like to hand over to Joseph first, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks very much. So my name's Joseph Hemming. I'm a finance apprentice at Network Rail. I've been at the company since 2020, and I'm actually on level 7 finance apprenticeship. I noticed it mentioned in the slides earlier about the level 3 apprenticeships, but we offer a couple different levels just at different points of the year. So like I say, I've been here since 2020. In that time, I've managed to sort of rotate around quite a number of different placements within the finance world at Network Rail. I've done things in tax, audit, investment, and it's just sort of helped me to get a wider picture and a wider understanding of how finances work in a large company like Network Rail. I've also been involved in some pretty interesting pieces of work as well, like it was mentioned earlier around Great British Rail. I managed to have a placement in the transition team that was set up in finance, looking at sort of the processes and the interesting implications of transitioning the business in such a major way. So to be able to, be involved in those really complex and quite strategic kind of conversations from a young age and early on in my career, I think has given me a very good perspective of how the finances for the company really work. Also, I would say that the support that I've been given throughout the entire time that I've been on the apprenticeship scheme has been fantastic, really. And that's from placement managers, from other apprentices in sort of like the wider Network Rail community. I feel like there's a very nice sense of community. And it's always something that I highly recommend whenever I talk to people, that Network Rail is a fantastic place to work. And I think a good place to start a long career as well. There's lots of people at Network Rail that stay here for a very long time and don't consider leaving. So I think it's a fantastic place to really get going in your career. That's it from me. So I'll hand over to Joel.
Hello everyone, my name is Joel Phillip. I am an IT and business apprentice. My current rotation is within project management, and a great place to start for yourselves would be just asking yourselves what you actually want to get from this apprenticeship. Because for me, I'm much more of a hands-on learner over a head-to-book learner. So I learn much better by experience, by making mistakes, much over the traditional route of going to university, putting your head in a book and putting pen to paper over and over again. So that's the biggest reason why I had chosen an apprenticeship. Another great thing about our apprenticeships is that it's not limiting to who can apply. It can be from whatever age, you can be whatever age, whatever experience, and it's completely dependent on your willingness to develop. So when I first applied and when I first done my interviews, I came straight out of sixth form, which I'm guessing a lot of you can relate to. But even from my point of view, we've had, when I do the interviews for the other apprentices, we've had people from all sorts of backgrounds come in. So now I'll talk about my experience and my current rotations. So when I first came in, I already had great communication skills and leadership skills, but before I came into the company, I'd never really used Excel before. So I spent a few months within the change management team. Here, I built up my Excel skills. I built up great experience with ServiceNow and slowly started leading team calls. I then moved on to the software asset management team. Here, I developed my organization skills, dealt with customers, got involved with training other colleagues, and led my own project. And then all of this then led to me being in my current desired rotation within project management. So when you listen to all the different rotations that I've been in, you can see that there's a lot of space for development. So I've always had a knack for stakeholder management, but I'm always looking to improve. When I first came in, I didn't have a full set of skills. So when I first came in, I'd never really used Excel before. So me and my manager at the time had sat down and said, listen, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at and I can excel upon. And I said, first few weeks before I came in, I think project management is probably the best way for me to go. And my manager basically just said to me, listen, Joel, I don't want to throw you straight into the deep end. If you don't have any Excel skills and you don't have this skill, you don't have that skill, you're going to really struggle in project management. So they don't just throw you into the deep end. They really do tailor your needs to exactly however you want. We've got a really supportive team. I've got a mentor. I meet up with him once every 4 weeks in order to get the most out of my career. So I just want to connect this all back to what I said at the very beginning. It's all about your willingness to develop. So yeah, that's everything from me. I'll pass it over to Rohan Ganga.
Cheers, Joel. Thanks, mate. Hi, everyone. I'm Rohan Ganga. I'm a second-year apprentice, exact same as Joel. I started in September 2023, so I've been here about a year and a half now. And exactly what Joel said, like, it is all about your willingness, to, develop yourselves. So a bit of background about me. I started at college, so I finished school. Obviously, I did my exams and stuff, and then I went to college. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are doing like your A levels or like sixth form, but I went to college. I did like a BTEC in computing because I always had like a like a strong interest in computing. So so I did computing for 2 years. And then I got the grades that I needed to get an apprenticeship. Now, one of the main reasons of why I actually chose an apprenticeship rather than going to, university was because you get to gain that hands-on experience. You can earn as you learn. And there's so many different perks. For example, if you're going to university, sure, it's great. Sure, you might be a bit more independent and things like that. But in the long run, maybe it's not the best option because, you're going to get yourself into like a lot of debt and, all these other things, for example. But with, a degree apprenticeship, especially, you're getting paid, to actually go to university as well. So yeah, exact same thing as I said earlier, you're earning as you're learning. So I started in September 2023. I've currently been in 3 placements, as you can see. My first one was in the project management side. So bearing in mind, this was like my first proper like work experience. Like I had never really worked before because I had like COVID before and things like that. So this was like my first kind of job. And I think one of the main things as an apprentice is that no one's actually going to rely on you, like, because, you're not actually contributing to like really important like work operations. If anything, you're just shadowing and you're learning things as you go along. So my first placement was in the project management side. I had no previous experience. I learned everything from scratch. I spent about 6 months there just learning what a basic project manager does. Then from there, I transitioned into the data team, where I also learned how to use Excel. So Excel is a software that a lot of people in the working industry use. So if you guys do want to get a bit of a head start, then I'd say definitely look into like doing some basic Excel stuff. I also use something called Power BI there. That was also cool to use. And then I was in data for a few months, and then I recently just transitioned into security. So just like how a network like and keeps itself safe online and things like that, and all the measures we have in place. So yeah, I think as well with this apprenticeship scheme at the company, you kind of you have the choice to explore. Now, what I'm trying to do is spend like a few months in each area of the company as I can throughout the apprenticeship, because the apprenticeship's 3 years, right? So I'm splitting it up into 6 months. So you can spend 6 months in one team, 6 months into another team, and so forth. And then by the end of the 3 months, of the 3 years, you have all this experience in all these different teams, and then you can put it on your CV, and then when it's time to get a job, you can then apply, and you look a lot better than people that just went to university for 3 years. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'll pass over to Bailey.
Right, thank you, Rohan. I'm not going to drag my bit on too much because obviously a lot of it has already been said and very well spoken by my colleagues there. So I'm Bailey. I started the Level 3 Rail Engineering Technician Apprenticeship in 2021. I come from a plastering and labouring background just on site, as I've always been hands-on when it comes to building and enjoy construction and all stuff like that. I chose an apprenticeship at 19 with Network Rail for a career set path. I was finding that on site working, as I was kind of the last in. I was the first out when COVID struck. I weren't getting much work. So I thought, what's going to be something for a bit of job security? And chose Network Rail because I think it's one of the most secure jobs you can get in the country, in the industry. Just a bit about the apprenticeship from my point of view. The stages of it were very clear cut. You get an ADC apprenticeship development coach from Network Rail and one from Inspiro, depending on what delivery company they use for the educational side. So you've always got like someone hands-on that's going to help you, whether it's going to be Network Rail who's in the business or someone on the outside that's going to help you with your coursework. I actually didn't go to university or do A-levels. I left school, done about 2 months at college and realised it weren't for me, and then went onto the construction site and now into the apprenticeship. A highlight for me on the apprenticeship was getting to meet plenty of people from all different backgrounds all over the country. I've still got a lot of good friends there now that I've met. I had time away, however, I think that's not a thing anymore at Westwood, but that was a really good experience for me, building relationships with a lot of different people. And my apprenticeship, as much as it is on the permanent away infrastructure, which is more hands-on outdoors on track for day shifts and night shifts, I split it with the tech team, who go through a lot of design and implications for us to then put out on track ourselves by hand. So there was, two sides of the coin which I really enjoyed. If you're more in the office, technical, computer savvy, you can go into that side of it, and you're looking at, big OTM tampering designs or track geometry faults with using the Tiger function that we have, or hands-on what I do, going out there and implementing what we're being told to do, basically. And in the engineering side, I'm the P-way infrastructure, but there's the overhead lines, there's the tech team, of course, S&T, telecoms. There's plenty of different stuff you can get into. And if you do stay in the same department, you can still experience a bit of everything else. As spoken before by my colleagues, the willingness for your development, you're only limiting yourself because there is endless doors that this opens. I said before, I didn't go to uni or get any A-levels. However, since I've completed the level 3 engineering apprenticeship, I can now apply for a level 6 potentially. So if I decide to do another 3 years of education with Network Rail, I can, or I can just stay where I am now in my current role, working down at Bletchley. The possibilities are endless. You can go anywhere. So that's me wrapped up. I'm going to hand it back to the host. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone. So before we just wrap up in terms of onto our Q&A, just a quick reminder from me, we are live for a lot of apprenticeship schemes at the moment, along with a few more on their way very soon. So if anybody is interested in finding out more, there's a QR code to our talent pool here, or if you'd just like to go and straight apply, if you just Google Network Rail Apprenticeships, we're the first link on Google, and by all means just have a look at each individual scheme, see which ones suit you, see where your skills lie, and then please feel free to get an application. Whilst we are live for around 2 months, once we receive enough applications for certain locations and certain schemes, we do start closing down for applications. So if you are interested, please do get your application in sooner rather than later.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. I believe that we are now getting to the questions and answers bit. I just want to say thank you, for that presentation. That was fantastic. And we've got plenty of time to go through all the questions, so please feel free to put them into the chat function. We're first going to go through the Q&A only bit. So if you have put your question in the chat, please feel free to copy and paste that into the Q&A section, hopefully that we all have access to. I'm just going to quickly shift our little faces to a different corner because I just realised that we may be covering the QR code a little bit. There we go. That should all be sorted. So yeah, perfect. If I can just invite all of the guests just to show their faces again, as we can direct some questions at them. Perfect. So we'll just start with the top one. And I think you did mention it right at the beginning. But they said, is this webinar for potential trainee train drivers? I believe you did mention it before, but it might be worth reiterating.
Yeah, so just to confirm, yeah, we don't really offer train driving apprenticeships or vacancies per se. If anyone's interested in those, you might be better off sort of looking at some of the train companies like Avanti and West Midlands and people like that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for just repeating that. So we'll move on to the next question, and I believe the question is this webinar also for level 6 apprenticeships?
Yes, so a couple of level 6s, and we've got a few more on their way as well. But yeah, we've got our level 6 digital and tech, which Rowan and Joel were from. And then also we've got a level 6 engineering scheme with a few more pathways on its way, as well as a project management scheme as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I kind of want to open this next question up to the apprentices. In terms of, when you were going through your application process way back when, what would you say is the biggest tip that you can give people when approaching that kind of process? If that be, maybe doing a bit more research into certain things, or maybe an experience that you really enjoyed that you'd like to share, if that's okay.
I don't mind going first. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, honestly, you go on. You can go.
Okay. I was just going to say, in terms of sort of interviewing for Network Rail in general, I've been involved in the process from the other side now, from sort of interviewing year and industry students and stuff like that. And I think it's very obvious when somebody's put in their sort of time and really looked into like the values of the company and the things that we care about, especially when you're applying for something like an apprenticeship scheme. We understand that you're not going to be perfectly technically proficient in a job that you've never done before. So what's more important is that you can display and show the right values that we look for in Network Rail. So if you, for example, if you were to look up the putting passengers first scheme as a little bit of a tip, that's something that mentioning that in an interview always goes down very well. So if you can do your research into the company beforehand, it'll always give you a helping hand.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else?
I was just going to say the same thing. It's definitely really important to look at the Network Rail core values before you come into the apprenticeship interviews. And another thing is, I can't stress enough that most of the people interviewing you will have been a apprentice, will have been a graduate, or will have just worked within Network Rail. So they know exactly how you feel. There's nothing to be nervous about. They do want to help you and they do want the best for you. So there's nothing to be nervous about whatsoever.
Perfect. Anybody else?
I'll chip in last for mine as well. If anyone is planning on applying for the rail engineering one, I recommend having a look at health and safety, because a lot of your, when you do the assessment centre, a lot of that is going to be heavy on health and safety. So if you kind of have already an idea about that, how it works in a company, that's fine. But specifically with Network Rail, it's like a massive box ticking thing for them. So it's probably best to have a little bit of knowledge on that, because it will ask you a scenario and see how you think about it from that point of view. So that's my bit as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So to kind of epitomise that, it's just all about knowing what you're talking about, do your research and show a genuine interest as well, I'd say. Even if, you may be lacking in the information department, which is absolutely fine. If you show a genuine interest, that can get you quite far. But yeah, perfect. We'll return to the questions in the chat function. So what month do National Rail Apprenticeships usually open? Is it a case of, it's kind of ad hoc, when kind of show up all the way through the year? Or is it more like you've got specific months where the roles kind of open?
So the bulk of our apprenticeships are live now, and generally we sort of go live start of Feb for the next couple of months. The only real exception to that is our level 3 rail operations scheme, where We do have some recruitment. We are going to go live with some roles in a couple of weeks' time. But with that scheme, we tend to recruit sort of throughout the year as and when the business needs. So for the most, now we're open for all of them. It's just the level 3 ops one where occasionally we'll go live throughout the year as well.
Yeah, spot on, perfect. So this next question is from David, and they're asking, how do they apply for a level 6 apprenticeship in digital technology solutions? Would that be a case of using this QR code below? Or
yeah. Or just if you literally just head onto the website, Google Network Rail Apprenticeships, first link, and we'll be there.
Yeah, spot on. And I'm just going to extend that to anybody that's asking, kind of specifics on kind of job roles and stuff like that. The best thing you can do, as we were mentioning before about research, scan that link, go to the website and just have a look around, and even pop an email. I imagine there's an email there for you. Start that dialogue and see what you can get out of it would be my best advice. But we'll move on to the next question. Again, this is more about eligibility. So do you need a background in engineering for the level 6 project management apprenticeship? Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that information would be available on the website as well.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. With the level 6s, again, I can't remember who was that mentioned it, but we don't necessarily need too much from an experience perspective, as we appreciate a lot of people might not necessarily have that. As long as you've got the sort of the required sort of qualifications, I think for the level 6 it might be a couple of A levels. You'll be good to go.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So again, I'm seeing quite a few, about eligibility. Please feel free to use the QR code and the links. And as I said, the best thing you can do is, look into that yourself and see what you can find. So I'm just having a quick scroll. Apologies. So this is actually quite a good one. Again, referring to the eligibility, but I think this is quite a good one just to make a point of, is they say, what is the minimum requirement? Do I need to be in the UK for 3 years to be able to apply for this apprenticeship?
So as a general, for when it comes to sort of any international students, candidates, should I say, we do welcome applications from them, but it's essential that you've got the right to work full time in the UK at the start of the scheme, so around September, October time, and that any of the employment offers that we make are subject to you having that, and we will check at sort of towards the end of the application process whether you've got all the right bits as stated. So yes, so as long as you've got the right to work into the UK full time, absolutely fine. But what I would say is sometimes when it comes to international candidates, sometimes people have different specific nuances that sort of related to their own sort of situation. If that's the case, if you do hop onto our website, we have a how to apply section. At the bottom, there's contact details for our candidate management company. So you don't even need to make an application first. Feel free to reach out if there's any specific nuances or anything that you'd like to check first. Yeah,
perfect. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of standard across all apprenticeships in regards to the the criteria about UK status, I believe. But yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. I suppose I've got another question in regards for the apprentices in terms of what was like the biggest misconception you had about maybe Network Rail, maybe apprenticeships in general, that you kind of, when you did start the scheme was like, this is not the case. It's actually like this. So yeah, please feel free to share your insights.
The biggest one that I expected even when I first started was that you get overloaded with work. You'd have to think that we are juggling work as well as our university work. So our mentors and everyone taking care of us do understand that, and they set an appropriate workload according to our university assignments and according to our projects, according to everything that's going on at work. So they're very understanding. So you don't have to think that as soon as you sign your contract to Network Rail, your whole life's over and you've got no time for anything else. You've got loads of time after work. There's nothing to worry about from that aspect.
I think just adding on from that point, one of the biggest, like misconceptions that I had was that like all the managers, are not going to have time for like a young apprentice. I think that's like a really common like a misconception, but like the reality is that people are actually willing to help if you actually show that you're interested in like a certain field. All it takes is just like one message or like one email just to reach out for them, and then you can either sort out like a day with them or like an hour with them, and people are like are always going to be there to help like the younger generation. So I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people are also like I'm scared to do is like reach out to like all the higher managers and things, but they do have the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that point as well. It's been my experience. I've had plenty of sort of senior members of staff as mentors during the sort of 5 years that I've been at the company. I think it just reflects on the real positive working culture that we have at Network Rail, and it's been a big boost to my professional development, I think.
Perfect. Anything else? Oh, have they practically covered everything? Perfect. No problem at all. We'll move on to the next question. And again, another kind of eligibility question, but again, I think this is worth just noting. So Neil asked, would someone 40 plus be able to apply?
Yes, absolutely. We don't have an upper age limit on our apprenticeships. In fact, we've had people start apprenticeships into their 50s in the past. So no, definitely not excluded because you're 40 years old. Absolutely not.
Perfect.
And often sometimes those that come from having some experience can then offer more and find more just because of the extra experiences and stuff that you've done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. And I believe, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty standard across apprenticeships as a whole. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next question. So there's a couple of questions, about specifics and courses. And, as we previously mentioned, the best thing you can do is research that firsthand using that QR code or just going onto the website. So I'm just having a quick look. This is a good question from Oliver. How close to a site location would you suggest an applicant be to apply? And if someone can shed some light on that, that'd be great.
Actually, that's a very good point. So for our level 3 engineering scheme, we do stipulate that you live within a 50-minute travel time of the depot where you'll be working. And the reason for that is sort of just to tie in with like health and safety, making sure you get an adequate rest times, etc. when you're traveling. For the other schemes, provided you're going to be, again, we do have stipulations in terms of location, travel time, sort of for 60 minutes an hour, but generally there's a little bit more flex. So if you're planning on potentially relocating, etc., then that's absolutely fine. But yeah, we do have sort of stipulations to live within 50 to 60 minutes travel time of your local office.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll move on to the next question. And do you offer any assistance for students with special needs and EHCP? And I suppose I kind of want to expand that as well. Obviously, that's a great question by itself, but just support in general as well, going through that application process. And even when you're a successful applicant, what kind of support network is around applicants, if that makes sense?
So I'll take a bit on this one. So during my time there, a lot of my peers were obviously different ages as well, tying in with the question earlier, and everyone is there to help you. Like I said, you've got 2 ADCs, one that's in the business and one that's out of the business. So even if there was a related issue and you didn't want to say anything because it was kind of like whistleblowing on someone that worked for Network Rail, you could go to your Inspiro ADC instead, and vice versa. And even now when I attend courses, regardless of being an apprentice or not, they'll always have a sheet which is confidential that you can fill in to say what requirements you might have or might need. And I know plenty of people that I go on courses with get extra time when it comes to the exams because of their needs that they've noted down before the course. You know, everyone's very inclusive and looking to help the people that they need to. So yeah, I didn't want to jump in, but I can answer that question very well, seeing it myself. So
perfect. Anything else from anybody?
All I would add to Bailey's point is just more at the start of the process. If you do require any additional support, or I think you do, if you do, even if you don't tick the sort of box at the beginning to say that you require some reasonable adjustments, you can at any point let us know. We will contact you then to try and find out what's the best appropriate support that we can provide to allow you to perform your best at the interview process.
Yeah, spot on, perfect. Thank you very much for that. So again, there's a couple of questions in terms of, say they've got this qualification already, can they apply? Again, I'd suggest, doing that research independently and finding out, using the QR code or going to the website. So we'll just move on to the next question, and this is a great question as well, is what does the first year as an apprentice look like? Maybe you can kind of give us just a couple of lines, of what to expect, and again, how to put your best foot forward in that year. Now you guys can kind of look back, if that makes sense.
Sure, I'll take this one. So the first year as an apprentice, I think it goes the same for like any job role. Like the first 3 months of any job, really, you're kind of still in that like I'm settling in phase, where it's like you finally got like all your whereabouts and everything, and then you're finally good to go. But the first year just consists of just meeting like a lot of new people, introducing yourself a lot. So maybe just get into the habit of just having a few points about yourself. Always ready to say. So it's, and again, like in my first year, because I've just finished it about a few months ago. I was like, I didn't really have no previous experience like using all these different softwares and things. So no one's gonna expect too much of you in your first year. It's kind of just like a trial to see kind of like how you're getting on in like the first few months, and then as time goes and as time progresses, you kind of transition and become more comfortable. So yeah, it's just like doing the basics, meeting new people, introducing yourself a lot, and just keeping that, positive attitude.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I'd also say it's really important to ask a lot of questions as well when you're new into the business. Everybody's going to understand that you don't have that kind of knowledge yet because you've only just joined, and everybody that I've run into has been more than happy to help you along the way. And there's no such thing as a stupid question, as cliche as that is, but it's true. In every meeting it's always the same, and if you don't ask the questions, you'll never know, and then 10 years down the line it will be a stupid question. So just make the most of the time that you have as a young apprentice, and use people to help build your knowledge.
Perfect. Anybody else? Oh, have we covered it all again? Perfect. I've got some thumbs up there, so I'll take that as a yes. Yeah, perfect. I do apologise if if I've skimmed over your question. The only reason I've done that is because I believe that it's findable, using the QR code, maybe a bit of research in yourself. I'm not ignoring you, I do promise. But yeah, we've got just about 10 minutes left, so please carry on putting your questions into the Q&A chat box. I suppose another question I've got in terms of locations, and again, please interrupt me, but as far as I'm aware, it's UK wide, like in terms of a general, and then for more specific apprenticeships, it will be more specific to certain locations. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, pretty much spot on. And the biggest reach, I guess, is our level 3 engineering apprenticeship scheme, where we're sort of north Scotland into remote Wales, all the way down into the south of the country. A couple of some of our roles are in just a few locations. The digital technology and services one is a bit more Milton Keynes based. So yeah, for in terms of any specific schemes, if anyone's interested, if you check on the website and go from there. One thing I would say is, and feel free in the apprentices if I'm wrong or different, etc. One thing you'll notice when you work here, your geography quickly gets a lot better because there's always opportunities to travel. Almost a lot of the time, sort of our early careers folks, our apprentices and co are encouraged to go travel, see the business, see how things work. So whilst you might be located somewhere, there's an opportunity to do a lot of traveling and sort of see different sites and different placements and things like that as well.
Yeah, perfect. And I just want to kind of ask you, about that travel. Is it a case where, you go and see different sites and stuff like that? And is that an opportunity that is open apprenticeship wide, or is it kind of something that you need to, if it's offered, take your chance, if that makes sense?
Ooh, I don't know if any of the apprentices have got any experience when you've been travels, etc.
I can say, even from a finance perspective, we sit back and don't really get involved in that frontline work as much. But even then, we still have plenty of opportunities to do site visits and see those functional, operational parts of the business. So I can speak from my perspective on that scheme and say that, yeah, even as a sort of more of a removed function, we still have the opportunity to go out there and see what happens on the front line.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Going off what just said then, me and Rohan have been on quite a few site visits as well. But on top of that, because we are also in university, it helps if we go on museum trips, go to see other teams, see how they function, to be able to make our job a bit easier. Because especially for me, when I'm in project management, it helps me understand my job role a bit better when I understand how other jobs interfere within our team. So it's not just even work; it can also relate to our university knowledge, skills, and behaviours, we call them. So within we get given a list from university called knowledge, skills, and behaviours. We have to tick them off, and whenever we've completed them, we tell our line manager, this is what we need to do. And if there is a site visit or even a museum visit or any visit that can tick these little boxes off, then it can be arranged.
Perfect. Anybody else got any answers, or have they covered it all again? Perfect. Yeah, no problem at all. So Joseph asked if this live stream will be available to watch afterwards. So this session is recorded. It is uploaded to Career Map TV on YouTube, and we aim to do that in about seven working days. But just keep an eye on that space, and yeah, it should be available to watch whenever. I'm just reading this next question. Apologies. So Vesta's asked if we could respond to their question. Apologies, I can't seem to find that question. If you could just post that again, we'll be able to respond to it. And then a question in from Turan, so about a specific circumstance. What I'd suggest, as it is quite specific, is I'd just send an email, write a message in one way or another, start that dialogue and see, what you can apply for you. And I suppose there is a question just to expand onto that. In terms of, picking the courses that you apprentices did, was there kind of a clear route for you, or was it more so you kind of had to open that dialogue, maybe do a bit more research into if it's, what you like or kind of what fit academically, if that makes sense?
Sorry, could you ask that one more time?
Yeah, not a problem at all. So when you were going to pick your apprenticeship, was it a clear choice, or was it to do with, what you preferred, or was it just because of maybe an academic route that just made sense?
For myself, it was more of an academic route that just made sense for myself. I don't know about the others, but I already knew that I had a good interest within business and IT. I didn't know exactly what role, but obviously Network Rail being more rotation based, where you don't have to know exactly what you want to do. You just need to have a good interest within that field, and you'll be able to experience all these different teams. And there wasn't too much stress about which exact role I have to put all my eggs into one basket. But yeah, for me, I've always knew I had a clear interest within business and IT.
Perfect.
I'll just add on for that point. For me, it was like I always had this, this like vision, like at the back of my head that I did want to get an apprenticeship, because I still applied for like a normal uni through from UCAS and things like that. And I remember I actually had like an open day, for like a taster of uni. And I remember I was sitting there in the lecture, and I was literally just like, I was like tired, and I was thinking to myself, is this going to be my life for the next 3 years? And then luckily, like a few weeks later, I got the place here, and then I started coming here, and it was literally like the complete opposite of that. Like, you're actually getting involved more, and you're speaking to people on like a daily basis, and you're working with like, on like all these different projects. So it's more interactive in that sense. And I think that was one of the main reasons why I chose to do an apprenticeship rather than do the normal route.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll just add on to that as well. When you apply for the apprenticeship, it may give you an option of what department that you're most interested in, and they'll look at obviously your background and qualifications, and they'll see what you have. So if you've got previous degrees in certain areas, you're more than likely to get moved there, and it ties in with location as well. If you're applying for the engineering one, you might apply for track, and you might get given S&T because it's the closest depot that has a space for you. But like I said, regardless of which one you take, I've got a friend that recently passed the same time I did. He done his whole track apprenticeship, and then within a week he applied for S&T and got that anyway, because they see that you've already had 3 years in the business, done the apprenticeship, and you can get a good reference even if it's in a department that you're not planning on staying for. So yeah, it will all fall into place, especially if you've already got previous experience somewhere. And for Vester's question about colourblindness, it shouldn't matter at all. My supervisor's colourblind, and there's only like 2 or 3 things that he can't do course-wise out on track. So regardless, if you put that in the circumstance, I'm sure you'll still be able to get on. And I think it doesn't affect the other departments, but it definitely doesn't affect mine. So there's that question as well.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for answering that question. Last but not least.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just sort of echo what my other colleagues have said there, really. I think as long as you have a general kind of interest in the area that you apply to, you don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs and know exactly where you want to specialize. The whole point of apprenticeships is to be able to experience different areas and find out really from that what you sort of work best in, and then sort of angle your way to get that kind of full-time role at the end of the scheme. So I think as long as you pick something that you know you have an interest in, you won't go too far wrong.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. So we are just quickly about to run out of time. We've probably got enough for one more question. So Reece says there's a few that's asked about level 2 NVQs and if they could still join. I just wondering if you could shed some light on that, if that's okay.
Yes, again, depending on the scheme, as long as it counts as one of the equivalents, no problem. No problem at all.
Perfect. So yeah, I do apologise if we didn't get round to your questions. We did try our best. We got through quite a few there. The best thing you can do is obviously scanning that QR code, doing your own research and showing a genuine interest. So I hope everybody has found this seminar useful. As mentioned prior, this webinar is recorded and can be found at Career Map TV on YouTube within the coming week. So yeah, all that's left to do, thank you for the presenters today for doing such a fantastic job and answering as many questions as we did. Thank you for the audience for asking great questions and getting involved. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great rest of the day, and thank you again. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, everybody.